Hey everybody, this is Rick Riordan, author of the Percy Jackson and the Olympian series. And I'm here with an exclusive inside look at the Demigod Files, a new Percy adventure that's coming out February 10th, 2009. Inside the book, you're going to find 3 different adventures with Percy and his friends. You're going to get a map of camp, you're going to get all kinds of cool extras, and you're going to get a sneak preview at The Last Olympian, the 5th Percy Jackson book that comes out May 5th. But for now, I thought I'd give you a little sneak peek at The Sword of Hades, one of Percy's adventures in the Demigod Files. Christmas in the underworld was not my idea. If I'd known what was coming, I would have called in sick. I could have avoided an army of demons, a fight with a titan, and a trick that almost got my friends and me killed. But no, I had to take my stupid English exam. So there I was, the last day of winter break, sitting in the auditorium with all the other freshmen, when Mrs. O'Leary burst onto the stage, barking like crazy. Mrs. O'Leary is my pet hellhound. She's a shaggy black monster about the size of a Hummer. She's got razor fangs, steel-sharp claws, and glowing red eyes. She's really sweet, but she usually stays at Camp Half-Blood. I was a little surprised to see her on the stage, trampling over Christmas trees and Santa's elves and the rest of the Winter Wonderland set. Everyone looked up. I was sure the other kids were going to panic and run for the exits, but they just started laughing. A couple of the girls said, "Aw, cute." Our English teacher, Dr. Boring, I'm not kidding, that's his real name, adjusted his glasses and frowned. "All right," he said, "who's Poodle?" I sighed with relief. Thank gods for the mist, the magical veil that keeps humans from seeing things the way they really are. I'd seen it bend reality plenty of times before, but Mrs. O'Leary as a poodle? That was impressive. My poodle, sir," I spoke up. "Sorry, she must have followed me." Somebody behind me started whistling "Mary Had a Little Lamb." More kids cracked up. "Enough," Dr. Boring snapped. "Percy Jackson, this is a final exam. I cannot have poodles." Woof! Mrs. O'Leary's bark shook the auditorium. She wagged her tail, knocking over a few more elves. Then she crouched on her front paws and stared at me like she wanted me to follow. "I'll get her out of here, Dr. Boring," I promised. "I'm finished anyway." I closed my test booklet and ran toward the stage. Mrs. O'Leary bounded for the exit, and I followed, the other kids still laughing and calling out behind me, "See ya, poodle boy!" Mrs. O'Leary went straight into Carlshirt's Park. By the time I caught up with her, she leaped an iron fence and disappeared into the bushes. On the other side was a clearing. Mrs. O'Leary was sniffing around, wagging her tail like crazy. I wasn't sure why, but the back of my neck started to tingle. I took out my ballpoint pen and uncapped it. Immediately, it grew into my bronze sword, Riptide. Then, the bushes rustled, and a figure in a hooded parka stepped into the clearing, an arrow notched in her bow. The girl aimed at me and then froze. "Percy?" She pushed back her silvery hood. Her black hair was a little longer than I remembered, but I knew those bright blue eyes and the silver tiara that marked her as the first lieutenant of Artemis. "Thalia?" I said. "What are you doing here?" Before she could answer, a cloud passed over the sun. I readied my sword. Thalia drew her bow. Instinctively, we stood back to back. A patch of darkness passed over the clearing, and a boy tumbled out of it like he'd been tossed. "Ow," he muttered. He brushed off his aviator's jacket. He was about 12 years old, with dark hair, jeans, and a black t-shirt, and a silver skull ring on his hand. A sword hung at his side. "Nico?" I said. Thalia's eyes widened. "Bianca's little brother?" "Why did you bring me here?" he grumbled. "One minute I'm in a graveyard, the next... Is this New York? What in Hades' name am I doing in New York?" "We didn't bring you here," I promised. And then a shiver went down my back. "The children of the big 3, I said. "Zeus, Poseidon, Hades." Thalia took a sharp breath. "The prophecy. You don't think..." She never finished the thought. The ground rumbled. Nico drew his sword, a black blade of Stygian iron. Mrs. O'Leary leaped backwards and barked in alarm. Too late, I realized she was trying to warn me. The ground opened under Thalia, Nico, and me, and we fell into darkness. And that's the beginning of the Sword of Hades. You can find the rest in the Demigod Files. I hope you enjoy the book.